time game next week because all Ohio State games are big time, but it's another conference game, and we'll have the preview for that when we need to have the preview for that. So with that, we're going to go ahead and jump into the boxing world and talk about Canelo Charlo fight week begins. What to expect leading up to Saturday? Well, what to expect leading up to Saturday? What to expect is going to be a lot of, bravado, a lot of history of the two fighters, a lot of history of fighters that are undisputed that fought each other and all that good stuff. But I think this is the first of where you got two guys with 5 belts apiece and they're going to fight each other for the right. But Canelo's not fighting Charlo for the 154 belts. Canelo has already dominated that division. That was like 5 years ago for Canelo's career, maybe 6-7 years ago for Canelo's career. Charlo is a guy that just stuck there at 154 because he never went to 160 because his brother fights at 160. And there was no point in going to 168 because you've been able to be the king of the 154 division. And what they did with Charlo, since it was a slow build to make him a popular boxer, because he's always been a great fighter and he's always been a knockout artist, but it was a slow build because the guy's attitude is one of those attitudes that keep you kind of far away from a guy because you don't want to piss him off or you don't want to get pissed off listening to what he has to talk about. But he is matured. He's doing a lot better now. He understands that he's in his 30s and he has children and you have to act like an adult at some point. And he's pretty much got to that point. Canelo is really on the back end of his career. Let's keep it real. Canelo only has so many more fights in him where he's going to look decent. Canelo's prime is gone. It's over with. Canelo's prime left after the Caleb Plant fight, pretty much. Because Caleb Plant, they're never going to give Caleb his props. But he made Canelo work for every single one of those rounds he won. And he made Canelo really work for that knockout that he had to get at the end of that fight because we don't know how the judges were going to actually score that fight. Because, I had Caleb Plant up a point, I think, at that point before the stoppage happened. And, we know Canelo would have won, but there would have been a little bit of controversy there because, believe it or not, Caleb Plant competed. And it showed that Canelo wasn't the ultimate pound for pound anymore. And I felt like it was slipping away when he fought against Kovalev. Because I had Kovalev winning the fight. Without knocking out Kovalev, I truly still believe, I know it wasn't on the scorecards, right? Because they already had the judges pretty much taken care of. But I really, truly believe Kovalev would have won that fight if the fight would have went the distance. But it didn't. So it made Canelo look legendary. He knocked out a 175 guy. Blah, 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 blah. But at the same time, too, he had a lot of issues in that fight. And then he fights Bivol. Bivol exposes everything. But Canelo's excuse is he was hurt. Rib issue, hand issue, mental issue. He wasn't ready for the fight. He said he should have canceled the fight. He should have moved on. Canelo has the pass to do that if he wasn't all the way 100% because nobody wants to see Canelo not be 100%. So regardless of if he was able to fight or not able to fight, he went in there and fought the dude and got whooped. It's that simple. And then he gets some props back by beating a over-the-hill old Triple G. And he knows that wasn't anything you could write home about. And it was a fight that he was forced to be in because he had to honor that portion of the deal for the zone. Everybody knows that. Everybody who's in the business of boxing knows that the only reason why we had a third fight was because Canelo was obligated to have that third fight. He held it off for so long, knowing that he didn't want to fight Triple G a third time that quickly after beating him the second time, knowing that Triple G knows everything he would have to do to beat him in the third fight and make it just an even situation. You had to wait till the guy was absolutely done, and that's what happened. And he went ahead and got himself a nice little, boring victory over Triple G. And then he fights Ryder, and Ryder's supposed to be a guy he puts out in 3 rounds. And Ryder winds up being a guy that becomes a formidable opponent and helped himself get 5 more paydays after that. That was supposed to be John Ryder's retirement fight. Not at all. So there's a lot of things that are going against Canelo in this fight. But one thing that's going for Canelo is the experience. Canelo has been in the big game plenty of times. Charlo has been in the big game a few times, but it's been recent. Recently, he's been in the big game. You know, Tony Harrison, huge fight. That was a championship fight. That a lot went into that. That was a great rivalry. He got his revenge after a controversial decision. Brian Castano, who's probably the it fighter in 154 after Charlo and was seen as the guy who should be in place to be the undisputed. A lot of people felt like in their first fight in the draw, Castano won the fight. I didn't feel like he won the fight. I felt like the fight was a draw. What happened in the second fight? Charlo goes ahead and takes care of his business and ends the fight the way you're supposed to end the fight, by knocking him out. And so pretty much that, to me, propelled Charlo to the number 1 fighter in the world, because he went in there and he beat the guy who was holding up the division on championships, who had the last belt he had to get. And he didn't go for a decision. He went for the kill, and he put the guy out. And this is what makes Charlo a very exciting fighter, because Charlo finishes his fights. And that's exactly what gets you on pay-per-view. That's exactly what gets you talked about by everybody. And Charlo has done that pretty much his whole career. And he's been able to step up at the biggest moments of his career in these big fights and get himself, you know, the big moment. And I feel like Saturday, if he doesn't overexert himself during the week with all the media obligations and all the talking and all that other stuff, and if he just goes back to his room and focuses and, you know, don't overtrain, don't be talking on the phone too much, don't be over here, you know, giving people your moves and all that other stuff that are outside of this situation. You go about your business just like Canelo does. And I promise you, this can be a great fight on Saturday. But if he goes in here smiling a little bit too much for me and, you know, being a little bit too cordial and too humble, then Canelo already has him beat. Because to me, you have to go in here with the idea, and we all respect Canelo, but if I'm advising Charlo, and this is boxing, so don't get offended by me saying this, we ain't got no damn respect for Canelo coming into this week. We feel disrespected because you've been avoiding me for the last 7 years, and you know I was your mandatory 3 times. So I'm pissed off because you think that you're that much better than me. I'm about to show the world that you ain't. And this can be Bernard Hopkins and Roy Jones Jr. too, if they want to be. They could be exactly like that situation if Charlo came about it like that. If Charlo wants to be humble, he wants to be cool, he wants to show his maturity, and he shows his respect for Canelo finally signing the contract and absolutely helping him become the guy that he's been dreaming to be in this business. He is now truly a multimillionaire because he's going to make at least $10 million for this fight. So, hey, at the end of the day, he won the lottery. But can you go ahead and take the jackpot? That's my thing. So with that, we're going to go ahead and take our first commercial break. And when I get back, we're going to jump into some baseball. We got Blue Crew Daily. We got MLB Tuesday night. And then we got Talking Tickets right after that. So you guys stay tuned. This is the Premier Sports Betting Show, the Primetime Angles, with the one and only Pop Dibiase, the Primetime Cappers.
Good News Only Racing Club, led by the legendary Doug O'Neill, the trainer of 2 Kentucky Derby winners, and I'll have another, and Nyquist. Also